Hello, everybody. Welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today, joined by K-Bomb once again, we're going to be talking about, I guess, just where we are in the season. Only a handful of playdays left for each region, and some teams have fewer games left to play than others. We're going to focus on just Europe and North America. We'll talk really briefly at the beginning here about Brazil, just our thoughts, but we're mostly going to focus on those two regions, and we're going to say if we think that each team at the end of the stage will be higher than they currently are, lower than they currently are, or in the same position. And just to explain what you're looking at on the screen, these are our original predictions. I have Tact and Tom's up here as well. They're not with us though, it's just me and K-Bomb. And then these are the standings for the teams, how many points they have, and then we have their upcoming matchups that we can reference. And then these numbers over here is just how far off we were currently. So this will still change by the end. So this doesn't technically matter. I do have the best predictions at the moment for each, but again, because the stage isn't over, this doesn't necessarily matter. So I predicted Oxygen at third place, but they're currently in first place, so that's where the 2 comes from. And if a team is lower than you predicted, then it's a negative number, and I just added up all the absolute values. Okay, I hope that covers it. The colors is just to make it look slightly nicer than all black and white. Okay, so start with Brazil. Do you have any thoughts that come to mind immediately about what's gone down in Brazil, K-Bomb?
FaZe Clan has really been like the only consistent team in Brazil.
Yeah.
And everybody else has kind of just been a dogfight, which I feel like is not normal for Brazil. I feel like in Brazil normally there's you got like the top teams. I feel like Brazil is a very top heavy region normally, and right now it's been pretty crazy with NIP, Liquid, Solo, and even Furia down at 5. So it's definitely been an interesting stage for BR.
Yeah, maybe a little bit crazier than normal. I don't generally pay a ton of attention to Brazil. I'll just, maybe watch a match here or there, and I'll sort of look at the standings at the end. But yeah, I mean, a big standout, Liquid, they've had a terrible stage. They bounced back in their last 2 games a little bit. We'll see if it's unlikely that's going to be enough to drag them into the top 6, but at least they didn't look pathetic in their last 2 games. Furia, the reigning world champions, are definitely underperforming in their last few games. So Liquid turned up and Furia turned down. And yeah, FaZe is the only really consistently strong team. They're the only undefeated team. They're the only team currently secured top 6. I guess Black Dragon's really close, and a few other teams are pretty likely as well. But let me look at what the other guys said. So the other guys, they were supposed to be here, but they just weren't able to attend. But they made a few notes about what they think is going to happen. So what did Tom say? For Brazil, he said that he was confident Liquid wasn't going to make top 4. Where did you have? Where did you have them, K-Bomb? I guess I don't have it. I have it on this sheet. I can pull it up. Brazil predictions. We didn't do the full predictions. You had them at 4th. So I mean, did you feel like they were just going to sneak in there? Did you feel like
I thought they would take some time to get used to, kind of like they are, but I did not think it was going to be to this degree. Like I thought they were going to have no problem with the easier teams in Brazil, but they might lose to teams like FaZe and IP, W7M, just because they need some time to get used to with Maya instead of Volps, and I guess Lagonis is still the IGL, but Maya, from what I've heard, he's a vocal player, so stuff I thought it would take them getting used to, but I did not think they were going to lose 4 in a row to start against not. And I mean, it's not like they just lost to great teams. Like they lost to NIP 7-5, sure, and then they lose to Black Dragons, which Black Dragons has looked really good there. E1 7-1 to E1, and then 7-3 to W7M, so they had a really bad start.
Yeah, the loss to NIP, it was a close one, and that could be reasonable. NIP are usually really good or really bad, and maybe this would have been a really good stage. I don't think it was a very impressive showing from either team in the actual matchup, but, losing 7-5 is not the end of the world. But then, yeah, they lost 7-3 to Black Dragons, then they lost 7-1, so they got 5 rounds and 3 rounds, and then 1 round, it was just getting more and more concerning, and then they got smoked by W7M, so the new W7M, of course, former Team 1. And then they bounced back, but it definitely took them a while. They looked really bad for the stretch of 3 or 4 games. And yeah, I had him in third place. I really did expect that Maya was going to sort of liven things up, that he would hit the ground running, and that some or all of the rest of the players would sort of follow suit. I don't know. Like, obviously they haven't been good recently. They didn't make Copenhagen, and I think they even did a little bit better at SI than a lot of people expected that they would. I think some people thought they would be, go out in groups or first round of playoffs or whatever. And they only got they didn't do much in bracket, but they looked reasonable in groups. They had some okay performances. And so I didn't put a ton of stock in my predictions. The first ones were mine. So I had them in third, which obviously they're not going to make third. Maybe they'll make a run up to somehow top 6. I haven't actually look at their upcoming matchups. But if they make top 6, maybe they
MIBR right now.
Oh, right now. Yeah, the games are actually going on, and funnily enough, Furia actually just got smoked by Black Dragons, which is peculiar. But these matches won't be done while we're recording or anything. I guess maybe 1 or 2 will finish. But anything else for Brazil you wanted to know? I think Liquid is like the big one on people's lips right now, and then maybe also Furia just right now because they got smoked by Black Dragons after losing to FaZe and Liquid. They're now on a 3-game losing streak.
I think the way it's looking, we'll get to see a new team at the major from Brazil, which will be fun because I feel like last year we mostly had like the same teams.
Yeah, it was current Furia and FaZe and NiP went to all the events, and then Liquid made 1 major, and
Los.
Team 1, or yeah, Los, now W7M made 1.
Yeah.
So yeah, we didn't see a ton of diversity, and we didn't see a ton of diversity from the top regions either, because it was the same 4 teams from NA that went to both majors. It was 3 of the same teams for EU that went to both, and M&M made 1, BDS made the other. So not a ton of variance. It's looking like, I mean, if the upsets continue to happen, we could see a bunch of different teams from all the top regions. I mean, I think that would be exciting to see. The likes of Beast Coast or Wildcard or Into the Breach or Black Dragons, just whatever team from whatever region.
Wild.
Yeah, okay, buddy. We're gonna I guess that's actually the next team to talk about. Sorry, I didn't finish Tom's remarks here. He said that he's pleasantly surprised that W7M is still seeing so much success. Yeah, they look really good. Honestly, I thought they would need a little bit more time, but Volps is looking incredible on the new team. I think he's really proving that it was the rest of Liquid that was the problem and not him. And Tom also said that he thinks E1 is going to fall off, and that MIBR, Furia, or Keystars will take their place in the top 4. And Tact said that he thinks it's sad what's going on with Liquid, but at least they're bouncing back. Maybe they'll make a run through the rest of the stage. FaZe being number 1 is expected. They've done really well in Brazil. Yeah, they were the number 1 seed, right, for Brazil, both majors last year, I want to say. And
we talking about FaZe?
FaZe, yeah.
Yeah, I believe they were.
And then Tact says he's also not high on E1. He doesn't think they'll keep it up. And I think that's it. Do you have any last things you want to say about Brazil before we move on to Europe?
What's with the E1 disrespect?
Oh, you're a big E1 fan? What do they
No, I'm not a E1 fan. They've
like,
won 4 games in a row. I mean, I don't,
are they 4 in a row?
Hey, yeah. And they're about to beat FaZe too. So like,
oh, are they?
what's their
name? Yeah, they do have a tough one. Okay, they got FaZe, they got Furia, and they actually have like potentially the 3 hardest matchups at the end.
Yeah.
So
okay, so
I think predicting a fall off is pretty reasonable. If they do get 2 or 3 of these wins, then I mean E1's the real deal, I guess, but it seems unlikely. Okay, let's go to Europe, and we are just going to work our way up. So we're going to start at the bottom of the standings, and we'll just talk about the teams, and we'll say if we think they're going up or down or staying. So first up is Wild, and you predicted them to be 3rd place. So, and that's one of the biggest discrepancies we have. So why did you think Wild was going to be so good, and why do you think they've not been so good?
I think that Hanto and Nello, I was both high on them with the ACOG coming back. So I was like looking for a meta shift, and I was like, okay, Nello and Kanto are 2 guys I think that are really going to benefit from taking away 1.5 and bringing ACOG back. And then I was a big Wild fan last year whenever they had aces and
Big.
so I like Pack Bull. I like the way they play Siege. At least they did last year. And then Lolo and Tab are both good players in my opinion. So I was just like, I thought they were going to be a lot better than they were. I thought they were going to be the team that I was going to pick to sneak into the top 4, but they really struggled at first. I guess they looked better today, but it's.
I mean, they got a win. They didn't look spectacular.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd say if they look
it's
good.
Definitely
of course,
too
I
little,
didn't.
too late.
It seems really hard, and because they do have 3 games left, they're one of the several teams that has 3 games. They have ITB, G2, and VP, so they don't have any of the absolute like top dogs at the moment left. But those are still, G2 and VP, even if they haven't been doing spectacularly this stage, those are still scary matchups. And then ITB they've been doing pretty well. They're in 4th place at the moment. So no easy matchups for them in general. I mean, just no real easy matchups in the league. There's no super pushovers. If anybody is the pushover, it is them. So do you think they're staying here, or do you think they're going up? Obviously, they can't go down.
I do think they will stay in 9th place.
In last place, yeah. So
yeah,
they, in terms of their upcoming games, they have VP to play on their last day. So this could determine who gets last place, and it doesn't really matter who gets last place if you're not making top 6. It doesn't matter too much. But I mean, if VP loses to both these teams and Wild loses to both these teams, then it will just straight up be the winner of this.
I did have Wild beating VP, but
oh really?
That's the only 2 points.
Who do you have VP beating on Fnatic?
I have VP getting a point off BDS and then 2 points off Fnatic.
So yeah, I also
and 1 point off Wild as well, right? No, not the point off BDS. 2 points off Fnatic and 1 point off Wild. So I think
there's gonna be a lot of overtime, but I guess VP is sort of one of the most famous overtime teams. And yeah, I also have them staying in last place. They showed a little bit of life today. I think it was just a 7-5, right? Let me go check. And it was against Fnatic, not like one of the world beater teams at the moment. And it was on Skyscraper, and I think they went like 3-3 on their attacking half. Because let me see. Is that
they were on defense first?
They started on defense, and then then they. Oh, was it 3-3 at the half?
Yeah, and then they.
Oh,
won.
I think you're right actually. Yeah, so attacker sided Skyscraper. Curiously, are these teams monstrous at attacking? Or are they terrible at defending? Who's to say? Yeah, I mean, I guess they got the 3 points, which is huge for them in terms of maybe avoiding last place. But again, it seems pretty hard for them to climb their way out of the bottom 6 because they need to pass a bunch of teams, and yeah, they're in range of doing so at the moment, but some of these teams are for sure getting points. They can't all not get points. So I guess we'll move on, or let me just say really quickly, I had Wild pretty low. I guess yeah, I had them the lowest of everybody. I only had them above ITB, and ITB I think is certainly the team that I underestimated the most coming into the stage. But Wild, I thought they maybe had some potential. I just felt like pretty much every other team looked better to me, so I just didn't have a lot of faith in them. And I guess that's paying off here because I was currently I'm the closest in terms of predicting Wild. So yeah. Let's go to Virtus Pro, and they're tied in last place in terms of points. I think they have a little bit better round differential than Wild. I have them. I had them moving up, and obviously it's ambiguous where I'm saying I think maybe they'll pass Fnatic, and that's about it. And that's just based on the fact they play each other. I think maybe Virtus Pro will have a slight resurgence at the end. I still don't think it'll be good enough to make top 4, but I don't know. Do you agree? Do you think Virtus Pro is going to bounce back a little bit, like at least show a little bit of life at the end of the?
I did have them bouncing back a little. I had them beating Fnatic, but I still have them staying the same in the standings.
Okay.
I had them finishing with 7 points, so they have 4 right now. So that's like almost double what they have.
Damn, so who are Fnatic getting points again? Out of Secret and VDS. You think they're beating Secret?
What did I do?
Because if a Virtus,
I have them getting 2 points, so I had them getting
okay.
OT against Secret and then OT against VP. I think they lose all 3.
Fnatic loses all 3, but they get 2 points because they gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's one of the downfalls of this format, saying up or down. You do sort of have to figure out what you think is going to happen in order to determine that, because if you just say up or down, it's possible that you actually predict something that's impossible to happen. And we're not putting too much stock in the predictions here. We're sort of sticking with our original predictions. This is mostly just to have a talking point. We mostly just want to discuss about the team.
Well, these are my new predictions, but y'all can keep
well, you're not. Well, okay. I'm definitely going to judge you based on your initial predictions. But it's close in NA at least. I guess you're not doing super well in EU, but Virtus Pro, I guess, was our biggest blunder as a group. Everybody had them in the top 2. I guess Tom had them in first. Everybody else had them in second, and they're doing really badly. And I mean, I don't fault, obviously I predicted them really high too, but I don't fault anybody for having them high. They won the league both stages last year, and they made top 3 at SI, and they made top, I guess, 11 at both majors. They were really consistent last year. They were like never bad. Maybe they underperformed slightly at the majors, but within EU, they were like the kings. They were the best team. So to see them doing this badly is a massive surprise clearly to all of us, but I'm sure to everyone at home as well. So moving on to Fnatic. I had them as sort of my dark horse and I think I had them in like 6th place. Maybe they make it up to 6th place, but it looks like we all predicted them pretty similarly, and we all overrated them. So we all had them in like 5th or 6th as opposed to the 7th they're in now. So they play against Secret, Virtus Pro, and BDS. So Secret and BDS, obviously the 2 top teams in the league at the moment, and then Virtus Pro here at the bottom. So where do you have Fnatic going? I
have them staying the same as well.
Staying the same as well. Okay. And I put them as down. So yeah, I sort of predicted them to swap places with Virtus Pro. Again, I don't think that's going to matter in their hearts too much, because that'll still be outside of the top 6. And I don't think it's too terribly hard to predict that these will probably be the bottom 3 teams, because there's not a massive gap between them and the rest, but there's still, a 2-point gap between G2 and Fnatic, a 4-point gap between G2 and Virtus Pro. So do you have any thoughts about Fnatic? Did you think that they were going to beat Wild today?
Oh yeah, I definitely thought they were going to beat Wild.
Yeah, I was surprised. I thought maybe it would be a close game, but I definitely thought Fnatic was winning that, because Wild.
I feel like Fnatic started off good. They lost 8-7 to G2 in the very first game, and then beat ITB in week 2. And so I was like, Fnatic could easily be a major team, and then since then they have.
Yeah, they got kind of smoked by Wolves, close one against ENCE, and then I guess they had a bye the next day, and then they played against Wild. So they started off reasonably, and I think in hindsight, the G2 overtime isn't as impressive, because G2 hasn't been as impressive as people thought they would be this stage. And the win over ITB is decent, considering where ITB is. They probably, ITB more than maybe any team except for ENCE, like, probably needed the time to heat up because of the general lack of experience on that team. A lot of brand new or relatively new players. And so, I think it makes sense. Fnatic, newish team as far as a 5-man roster, but still a lot of experience on that team.
Yes.
So moving up to G2. So what are your thoughts on G2?
I've got G2 moving up 1 spot.
One spot. I think I also have them going up. So maybe this is. It's so hard to predict G2 because they're generally pretty consistently good, but like predicting them day to day is really tough. They were one of the most consistent teams last year internationally, making both, I guess, top 8 at both majors, and then top. Well, they get 4th place at SI, so top 8, top 4, top 4, I think. Yeah. So yeah, really good. Outshined only by the likes of like FaZe and W7M last year. So I would be surprised to see them miss the major. They do certainly need to bounce back, but they've proven that they can do it. One of the stages they made a really impressive run to qualify for the major. And I mean, it's been a little bit since they missed out on an event. I don't think it's going to happen here just yet. They do need to snap into shape a little bit. Even if they stay in the same position, they're still in, they're currently in top 6. So if they stay here,
as long as they get top 6, all they have to do, like, if you're in the spot
and then they get to
3 to 6 and you win 1 match, then you have 2 matches to win 1 and you're in, basically. Yeah. So that first match between the 3 to 6 is really important.
And based on G2's performances at the minute, you have to imagine that they're probably a lot better in best of threes.
And there's no advantage between being the 3 seed versus the 6 seed. Like it's just a best of 3.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't matter. Like technically the seeding, but in reality, it doesn't get you a bye like the other two. So yeah, I think G2's going up. They do only have 2 matches left to play, so they have fewer opportunities. So them and ENCE and BDS are the teams that still have a bye left. But G2 gets to play against Wild, which, I mean, I guess not an absolute freebie. Wild now has a win on the board, but I expect them to win that. And then Wolves, this could be a toss-up. I meant to check the head-to-head between those the two teams recently, but I sort of forgot. I think I'm predicting G2 to win that game. Who do you think is going to take it? Because that'll be really important.
I had an OT win for G2.
Do you predict every game goes to OT?
All the ones that I couldn't decide, yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So yeah, I guess that'll be super important because Wolves has harder teams to play. G2 has an easier team to play, but they only have the one opportunity to get more points, whereas Wolves has 2. So moving on to Wolves, where do you think they're going?
I have them going up as well.
Oh, up as well. Okay. I have them down. So I didn't in general predict a ton of mobility. So I had like Fnatic and Virtus Pro switching, and I sort of think maybe G2 and Wolves will just switch. No, I think G2 might go up like more than one spot actually. I'll discuss that a little bit more once we look at the next 2 teams. So yeah, what do you think Wolves are doing? I guess specifically in these 3 matches they have coming up.
So I had them getting 6 points. So an OT loss to G2.
Another OT versus one of these teams?
OT win against one of them. I don't remember exactly which one, and then a regulation win.
Okay, so you think Wolves is winning all 3 games?
No, I think they're losing.
No, sorry. Yeah, my mistake. Yeah, you said lose a G2.
But they'll get points in all 3 games.
But a good 6 points, which is pretty solid. And Wolves, they were looking not so hot, and then they've had a little bit of a resurgence. It's it's just a handful of best of ones. It's hard to look at like long-term trends, but they looked pretty solid in their most recent game against against Wild, 7-1 against Wild, which again, maybe the worst team in the league, but a 7-1 is still impressive nonetheless. We've not seen any 7-0s, and so I guess that and the BDS versus ITB are the 2 most decisive results that we've seen so far. And Wolves had I guess they had a bye in the most recent day. Do you think that's a big advantage? Because there's still like a whole week gap between I was thinking about this more so for NA because they have the full Super Week. Europe doesn't do I guess they're not having the Super Week. They're on a more normal schedule. But so this is going to apply once we get to NA. I think it's Luminosity that had the most recent bye, and then they're coming into the Super Week, right? So they have to play 3 games in a row, so there's not as much, there's not as much prep time because you have to play 3 games back to back rather than just 2. Do you think that it's at all a significant advantage to have just one more day to not play, to sort of review things, to plan? I think it maybe could, because I guess just one extra, if you think it's just like one extra day of rest, it's not terribly important, but they weren't seen playing this last day. They have a lot more super recent information on the teams. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Do you think it's a big factor? I think it's a factor. Maybe it's not a huge one, but it could be.
Yeah, I don't think it's a very big factor. I think it's more of a factor like because I'm kind of grouping the 2 play days back to back together almost whenever I think about it, because they're like a week in between and there's 2 days of just playing. Right. So I feel like maybe if you have a bye on the first day and then you're going into the second day, that can be more of an advantage. But having a bye at the end of the week, I think is doesn't matter.
You don't think it matters at all for the next week, or not significantly?
No, because G2 and Wolves both. I mean, maybe Wolves has 6 days to prepare versus 5 days, but I mean.
Yeah, but I don't know. I guess I'm just thinking that G2. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter. I mean, I guess G2, there are 2 days of VOD on them for the last week. Wolves, there's only the 1. I don't know. I was just trying to see if there was anything there. Probably not, though. It doesn't seem like a significant advantage. We'll move on. Sort of a moot point. Anything else to say about Wolves? You had them. I think this is actually where you predicted them. So if the Wolves don't move, then you predicted them correctly, and that was actually pretty rare. The only ones that anyone predicted right in North America are Los's current position, and then here, a few of us got BDS right, and then you got Wolves. So it's pretty uncommon actually for teams to be exactly where we predicted. So I mean, good on you there. But if they do go up like you're predicting now, then you'll be not precise. So we'll have to see. And moving on to ITB, this was a team that everybody underrated. So I had them 5 positions. I had them in last place, which I feel bad about now because they've done well. It's still possible that they get passed by a few of these teams, but we'll have to see. You also had them in last place. So what do you have to say about ITB?
They've impressed me. And they've also played the bulk of their hard games. The rest of their schedule is pretty easy. So I have them moving up as well.
Yeah, they got Wild coming up. Ents maybe not looking looking like as much of a freebie as they were at the beginning. Their last week was pretty impressive. And then Secret might be a tough one, but maybe they can get the full points against Wild and Ents. So yeah, they definitely popped off like this last week as well too. They only had, talking about ITB, only had a handful of points. They got 6 of their 9 points in their last 2 games, and they did it pretty narrowly too. Impressive beating both Virtus Pro and G2, but they were 7-5s. It's not like they were dominating or anything. It's still possible that maybe teams catch them slipping a little bit because good teams to have wins over in the long run, but again, neither of these teams have been like spectacular this stage. So they did impress me though. I think Creeds and Azure especially were doing well in both games, really getting the numbers. I wonder if they will be able to keep it up because it does seem like a lot of the success was off the back of some heroics. Maybe not all of it. Maybe there was some solid team play in there, but without those 2 players popping off, it does seem like that those might have been overtime games or even just over regulation losses. So where do you have them going?
I actually have them finishing second.
Second place, that's impressive. So you have them going up. I also put them as going up. So I think helped by the fact that they're tied on points with Ents, who only have 2 games left to play. ITB have the full 3 games left to play. So ITB have certainly impressed me as well, and they if they keep up this momentum, then it'll be great because they do have. They don't have like BDS. They already got their BDS game out of the way, and again, even if G2 and Virtus Pro aren't doing so well, those are still really scary teams to see on your schedule. Who I think will probably heat up a little bit at the end. So nice to have them out of the way. So moving on to Ents, you must have them coming down because
I do have guys. I have Ents going all the way down to 6.
Yeah, I sort of think they're gonna fall a little bit as well. Do you think they're losing both the games?
I have them losing.
You must. Right?
Let's see how many points I have them. I have them getting 2 points, so I think I have them getting overtime losses twice.
Buddy, you can't just say overtime for every game. That's insane. I also have them coming down, and I think it's possible that they go down multiple spots. I think it's possible G2 go up multiple spots, but that could be again a little bit ambitious given that they only have the 2 games left to play as well. So I could see something like G2 goes up 2, Ents goes down 2, ITB goes up 1, and like the Wolves go down 1. I hope that makes sense in everything I just said. So yeah, they've been good. Like they heated up. They're the only team to have defeated BDS, and that's a spectacular accolade on its own. So good on them there. And then they also, who did they just beat in their most recent one? It was 7-3 over Virtus Pro, which is also a good one on Clubhouse, which Virtus Pro historically really good on, but I guess Virtus Pro just couldn't even muster a defense. So if they keep this up, 7-3 over, so sort of similar to ITB, they got 6 points in their last 2 games, but they did it dominantly, 7-3 versus 7-5, 7-5. But again, they only have 2 games coming up as opposed to the 3 that a bunch of teams have. So then we have the top 2, and I guess you must have Secret coming down if you think ITB are getting second.
I also have Secret coming down.
But you have them in 2 spots. Okay, you think they're falling down?
So my rankings go. obviously BDS first. Then I have ITB in second, Wolves in third, Secret in fourth, G2 in fifth, and then Ints in sixth.
Okay, I put Secret as staying. I think probably I don't know if they win both of these games. They've come down to earth a little bit. They had a really good start, but they maybe played seemingly easier teams. But yeah, no, they were playing really solidly, and I did expect this. So, okay, I definitely didn't expect them to be in like top 2, but I thought they would be contending for a major spot, if not taking them. I did have them in 5th place. I think a lot of my expectations for probably both the regions, but I guess talking about EU right now, I think I underrated a lot more teams, or excuse me, I overrated a lot more teams than I underrated. I do think I underrated ITB, but I guess Wolves, they didn't perform as well as I thought they would. Same thing with Virtus Pro, same thing with G2. So I think I overrated all 3 of these teams to an extent. And so that is what put them under some of these other teams rather than these teams overperforming. I thought Secret would be pretty good. I guess maybe I overrated Fnatic a little bit. We'll see what happens the rest of the stage. ENCE was a big unknown, but I guess a lot of people had them all the way in like last place. I had them the highest of anybody, but we'll see where they actually end up. So again, I think my overrating of these 3 teams, which I think was pretty reasonable, Virtus Pro, top 3 at SI, G2, really consistent top 4 at SI, Wolves, sort of shaky at SI, but they at least had that nice W7M win. So we'll see what happens. But as far as Secret goes, I feel like they'll probably beat Fnatic and then beat ITV or Wolves. I think they'll get at least one of these wins. So I think they'll be pretty competitive. And
I had them getting 4 points. Out of those 3, don't know exactly. I think I have them losing in regulation to Wolves at the end.
Fair enough. And any of it could happen. It's so hard to predict these best of ones. So moving on to BDS, you have them in first place. I have them in first place. Everybody does. And we all did well predicting them in first place. Tom, the only one, he still had them in third place, which is pretty high, but he's the only one that didn't hop on the BDS train. It's possible they get past. They only have 2 games left to play. If somehow like Virtus Pro wakes up and then, I don't know, Fnatic does something crazy, maybe BDS get passed by the likes of some of these 3 teams, but I think it's unlikely. They got beat by ENCE, which was surprising, and they almost got beat by Secret. I guess they still got the win, but it came in round 15. I think probably they'll win both these games. It looks pretty likely given the standings. It's the top team versus the not the very bottom team, but the bottom two bottom 3 teams is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Fnatic and
I had them
getting
getting 6 points. So
I think they'll get.
I had them getting 2 regulation wins there.
Yeah, I think BDS will end the season strong, just like the stage, I guess, will end it strong, just like they started. And now let's look at what the other guys said. They had a couple notes for Europe as well. Tom said he was wrong about Secret. He had them all the way in last place, which I thought at the time was ridiculous and proven ridiculous now. I mean, they could still go down a few positions, but it's looking almost guaranteed they get top 6 at the very least, and then we'll see what they do in the playoffs. He said that he's happy for ENCE for their recent success, and I mean, if they kept up what they were doing at the beginning, it would have just been sort of tragic. Everybody was saying they were like one of the worst teams in the world, which feels harsh now because they have a couple of solid wins. Fnatic very badly needed the win over Wild today, and I have to agree. Yeah, that's a tough one. If they got the full 3 points, they'd be up here with the likes of ENCE and ITB, but instead they're sort of not quite securely, but pretty, a little bit securely in the bottom 3. And he also said BDS are doing great, and he said that he thought Shaika would play worse as an individual, and I think that makes perfect sense. You can't keep up the absolute world beater performance if everyone on your team is as good as they currently are. If you replace the people that you're taking the kills from with people that will get the kills, then it makes sense. But I think Shaiko's still been doing pretty well.
Yeah, he had a slow start, but the last 2 games
he was their bottom rated player, but not by a massive margin. Is he still there, or did they change? No, he's back up to tied in second with Leakafak in terms of rating. So he's back up. Solzhov, not like struggling, not having the best stage, -6 isn't fantastic. And finally, he said that hard to say who will get 7th. The bottom 2 will most likely be Wild and Fnatic. So he thinks Virtus Pro will at least pass Fnatic is what he's saying there, which I also said. I guess you disagreed with, but I don't think it matters too much. Yep. And then as for Tech, he said that he was very high on Secret and that he was right. Where did he have them? I think, did he have him in the top? Yeah, he had him in 4th place. So he was the highest on Secret out of all of us. I had been 5th, but he had him all the way up at 4th. The illustrious top 4, but I guess top 4 doesn't mean as much in the round robin, because you just need top 4 in playoffs / LCQ to actually make the major. He's happy for ENCE as well. He didn't expect Fnatic would do very well, and his notes are a little bit more lengthy. He disappointed in G2 at the moment. He thinks that that it's likely they'll turn around in the LCQ, and he thinks that ITB will sneak into that top 4 spot. I assume he means top 4 overall, as in going to the major, not just for the round robin. He thought Creed would do well, and Adrian, as they both have. And yeah, those are those guys' notes. And I guess at this point we can move on to North America, unless you have any final thoughts about Europe.
No, I don't think. I think I say the same thing I said about Brazil. I think that hopefully we'll see some new teams at the major. We're seeing. I think most of the teams that were at SI are not playing as good. I don't know if that has anything to do with the quick turnaround, or if that's just
that could be a factor. Yeah, none of them are currently in the top 4 as far as standings. Again, you just need top 6, but still, top 4 is like a cutoff people like to look at. Wolves, G2, and VP, the 3 European representatives at SI. But yeah, I didn't think about that too much. It is a pretty quick turnaround. A lot of the other teams did make roster changes, and in fact, did all of them make roster changes except for, every other team made multiple roster changes. I guess, well, technically ENCE is the same roster, but they weren't in T1 and they got a new org, so a little bit different there. But so yeah, they did have a quick turnaround, but they are keeping their same roster. So I guess it was still sufficient time for the other teams to train up, be good against them. I guess probably not only the time, but the VOD. They had so much to look at. The other teams have so much to look at for Wolves and G2 and VP from SI. That's probably also a factor, I would imagine, in the other teams having sort of a leg up on them.
Yeah, for sure. They probably were definitely prepping for those teams in particular, because those are the only teams you have footage on at that point. So
yeah, that's a good point. I didn't give that too much consideration coming into the stage. So let's move on to North America, where I anticipate we'll have a little bit more to say, because I've watched the games much more closely than I have the European games. So starting in last place, we have Los here at the bottom. What are your general thoughts about Los before we actually do the prediction?
I've even though they're in last, I've actually been impressed with Los, because they're kind of just like a hodgepodge group of players, almost like never really played together, and none of them are like spectacular players. From what I known before, they were a team, and then most of their losses have all been like close. So like, that's been pretty impressive. And then they beat SSG, which was big, but then they lost a wild card, so that kind of put them right back down. But
it seems like they're looking like a hodgepodge a little bit less as it goes on. They look like not a super well put together team. It does seem like individual performances are really important in what they've managed to accomplish, which admittedly isn't a ton. They are 1-4. They have just ignoring overtime and everything, they have the worst record by far. Every other team, at least 2 wins. But like you said, they've been really close. They lost Auction 7-4, which isn't super close, but it's also not super decisive. And they had a bye the next day. I wonder if that was important for them at all, because if you're a brand new team, I think the more time you have to prepare at the beginning is good. But they at least took Dark Zero to overtime, and then they took SSG, or rather they beat SSG. Solid win there, full 3 points. And then wildcard, it was also. Did I skip one of the? Yeah, okay. I missed the Sonics game. Also max regulation. So they had a 4-7 loss, a 6-8 loss, and a 5-7 loss before they got their first win. But Again, 2 of those games really close, and 1 of those games also pretty close. So, yeah, they looked reasonable. They at least looked like they could hang because
I mean, they haven't been blown out at all. So.
Yeah, I don't think, and nobody expected this. Everybody had them like low. Tom had them in 8th, and these are slightly edited because we had scammers in here and I took them out because, but I think everybody had them at the bottom except for you had them in like 9th or something.
No, I had them below Mirage, but most people had Mirage in last, I think.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Scammers, you had.
I said, well, at least scammers is NA, so I put them at.
Yeah. So we basically everybody had lows, pretty much at the bottom, and they are at the bottom. So we did, more or less predict it correctly up to this point, but at least they didn't get destroyed, which I think a lot of people did expect them to be. So what is your prediction? Do you think they're going up or not?
No, I have them staying right there.
I have them there as well, and it's pretty easy to put them there. They're in last. There's a 2-point buffer between them and the next 2 teams. They have M80 coming up, who look really strong, and then they have Luminosity and Beast Coast, who are they both 2 and 3? I think they're both 2 and 3, right? Luminosity's 2 and 3. Yeah, they're both 2 and 3. So not like they have a significantly better record than Los. They do have 3 more points, but still just 1 more actual win. So I guess it's possible, but I don't think they're getting out of there. I think they're staying there. Yeah.
I got them getting 1 total point between those 3 matches, and that would be against Luminosity.
Sure. Okay, so I don't think that's very surprising. I think that's like an easy pick. I could be, I wouldn't be massively surprised if they beat Luminosity and or Beast Coast, but I think I'm betting against Los at the moment. So next up we have Dark Zero, and things are looking really grim. This is, the biggest blunder overall. I had them in 2nd. All 3 of you guys had them in 1st place coming into the stage, and not for nothing, they were probably the best NA team at SI. They did tie in placement with Sonics, but I think Dark Zero probably just had more impressive feats along the way. Would you agree with that? That they were like the best NA team at SI?
Yeah. I think they played tougher teams than Sonics, so I think you could say that DZ was the best. I mean, you could argue for Sonics, but I would say.
Then in Dark Zero, they were 1 round away from top 3 if they'd beaten Virtus Pro in the upper bracket.
That's true. Sure.
And I guess actually more than 1 round, because they were up like 6-4, and then they got clutched, and then whatever. They were really close to making at least top 3, and Sonics went out a little bit sad, getting kind of destroyed in there. Right, yeah. It was W7M that eliminated them in that last matchup. So, and Dark Zero also had the advantage of having played with this 5 already. They, I guess Bolo and Nafe were still new, but they at least played with the team at SI. Whereas like SSG just brought on Iconic. Every other team had changes. I guess Wildcard had the 5 for a little while, but like Bosco hadn't seen his official T1 return. Basically, they had like the most established roster. Sonics made some changes. M80 brand new roster. Yeah, so I think there were multiple reasons to have them in 1st place. Their SI performance, their performance last year in NA was also really solid. A ton of factors, and they've just been terrible. And it's not looking good because they are in bottom 2. They only have 2 matches left to play. So they're
the maximum they can get is what? They can still get 12 points.
They can get up to 12, yeah. But still, a bunch of these teams have to get points. It's just the nature of the thing. And they have Oxygen and Wildcard. They have the 1st place team and the 3rd place team to play against. So that's also not looking terribly good in their favor. I guess Wildcard, they're not in 3rd place by a massive margin. All these teams are pretty close, but Oxygen are way up there. So what do you have DZ doing? Do you think they're staying?
I have DZ going up. I think they'll pass Luminosity.
So who do you think they're beating? Or I guess they could just take somebody to overtime and Luminosity could get no points. But
I think I had them getting 3 points between those 2 games. So I think
they're winning it. You think they're going to overtime twice?
Overtime lost to Oxygen. Overtime winning the Wildcard.
This is insane. This guy's mad. If all these come true, actual profit.
Every single game for the rest.
The odds are just minuscule. Yeah, I have them staying here. They're another team that they have to bounce back at some. They just have to. And a lot of people are saying a lot of stuff about Bolo. You know, it's time for him to hang it up. He should not have returned or whatever. He was having a pretty reasonable stage until...
He was good at... He was like their best player.
He was like their top-rated player, not by a massive margin, but still, until he dropped his 0-8, 0.00 rating. He was doing reasonably. Nobody on Dark Zero was doing that well. I guess NJR is sort of on the up and up. I think Nape is their most consistently good player, but yeah, it's just like one bad... People are so reactionary in the Siege community. You know, they had like one... I guess DZ's at a bad stage, but like Bolo had one really bad week, and they're ready for him to hang it up. I think maybe they'll bounce back a little bit. I hope they'll at least show a little bit more life, but I think it's so hard for them to get out of bottom... I guess it's bottom 3, not make it in top 6. If they hadn't or if they didn't have their bye still coming up, like if they had 3 games and one of these was like an easier game, like maybe I could see it, but
yeah, it'd be a lot more
it just feels too little too late. I think they're staying here. If they had 3 games left to play, maybe I'd put them over Luminosity, but because Luminosity has 3, they've shown they have at least enough upset potential to beat some of the other teams. I feel like they'll get enough points to stay ahead of DZ. I could be wrong, but that's what I'm feeling at the moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, Luminosity.
So I had them going down.
Okay, so you just think Dark Zero and them are like switching places?
Yeah, I have Luminosity getting the overtime win over Los, and then losing in regulation to Sonics and Wildcard, so only 2 points for them. And I had DZ getting the 3.
Okay, I mean, bold predictions, but I guess we'll see what happens. Yep. I feel like maybe they'll beat Los. Maybe I'm underrating Los because I was low on them, and then I was high as soon as they got their first win, and then they got smoked, and they lost. They didn't get smoked, I guess. So, yeah, I don't know. I just feel like they can get enough points. They already have their M80 and their Oxygen games out of the way, so Wildcard, Sonics, it's possible they lose both these. It's possible that they win both. I would be surprised if they... Or I would be surprised if they win both. I wouldn't be surprised if they win one of them. They beat M80 and they beat Beast Coast. I feel like their win over Beast Coast, it's very fortunate for them that they played Beast Coast early on. Beast Coast was still having their struggles, and now that they've sort of bounced back, they're looking better. So, yeah, I feel like maybe they'll scrape together enough points, but I guess it probably can't be true that they scrape together enough points and Dark Zero resurges a little bit, so we'll see what actually happens there. But even if they somehow manage to slip in the top 6, I would be very surprised if these guys make the major, though.
Yeah, I don't see it. I mean, I think Hat's really good, but I think the rest of their team is kind of a little bit lacking, in my opinion.
Yeah. So next up, we have Sonics, and I think we all had them around like 3rd or 4th, right? So yeah, all of you guys have them at 3rd. I had them at 4th. I was a little bit more reserved on them, and I feel like this is sort of consensus. A lot of people had like SSG, Dark Zero, and Sonics. Of course, these were the 3 NA teams that showed up at the major. M80 was there, but they didn't show up, right? And also, it's a different team. I guess Sonics is like largely a different team now, but I guess they have 3/5 of the SI team. So yeah, we overrated Sonics, and they were looking decent at the beginning. They were like 2-1 or 2-2, but I think one of their losses was, or both of their losses were close, because the SSG loss was close, and then they went to an overtime loss versus M80. So they were looking reasonable at the beginning, but then they definitely fell off, losing to Beast Coast sort of embarrassingly. Do you think do you think Nighthaven Labs was just like a terrible call because it hadn't been played in North America, hadn't been played in Brazil, hadn't been played in Europe? This was the first one. Do you think Beast Coast were just like readying their Nighthaven Lab to
definitely were prepping that map a lot? So I definitely think Beast Coast said we're going to be a Nighthaven Labs specialist. I feel like Nighthaven Labs is one of those maps that like plays differently than a lot of other maps, in my opinion, and I think that some teams are really good at it, like compared to how they are at other maps.
Yeah, I'll admit I've played very little Nighthaven Labs, and I guess I've also not watched that much Nighthaven Labs because it's generally not that heavily played of a map, so I can't speak on it too much. Yeah, I do think there's a lot of value in getting really good at the less played maps. Like, I think Skyscraper's played a lot more now, especially in certain regions. But a little while back, nobody was playing Skyscraper. So if you just readied your Skyscraper, you had it in your back pocket, and you caught a team slipping in the ban phase, and you managed to pull it through, like that was just a really big boon. Obviously, it's good to get good at maps that are very common, but if you can have a few of those uncommon maps like really, really polished, then I think that can be a really big advantage.
Yeah.
So, and this was almost a 7-0. It was a 6-0, and then Sonics managed to cobble together a few rounds, but Beast Coast still easily secured the 3, and then Sonics also lost 7-3 to Oxygen. So they went from looking pretty reasonable, they were 2-2 again, but at least their losses were close ones, to getting kind of smoked in their next 2 games. And upcoming, they have, let's go back to the sheet here. They do have only 2 games left, and they have Wildcard and Luminosity. I would expect them to probably beat Luminosity, but I don't know about Wildcard. I think Wildcard, NA is made so hard to predict by the fact that Wildcard and Beast Coast were really bad at the beginning, and now they're looking pretty good. I think that really threw a wrench in things.
And you could say the same thing about Beast Coast too. Beast Coast.
Yeah, no, I said both of those teams. I said Wildcard and Beast Coast.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. Sorry, I thought you just said Beast or Wildcard.
No, you're good.
So Sonics, I do have them moving up.
I also said that they'd go up. I don't think it'll be significantly because they don't have a ton of mobility. Again, only fighting 2 teams, but again, I feel like they'll get the full 3 against Luminosity, and maybe they can beat Wildcard. I think there's a lot of talent on Sonics, and their last 2 games, how badly they lost, aren't really indicative of what we can expect from them in the future. But I don't know if that'll be the near future or the distant future. So I think maybe they'll climb up just a little bit.
I think they'll win the last 2 games.
Full 6 points.
They'll actually had overtime win against Wildcard, and the full 3 against Luminosity.
All right, you think they're getting a lot of points. So yeah, I feel like they'll bounce back. I don't know. Tough to say. NA is just in such a volatile place right now. Just before, both of our prediction rates were really good before, like especially before the last day, because we both predicted really badly. But we were at like above 60%, and which I think is pretty solid. And now after the last day, we're like barely above 50%. So let's move on to Beast Coast. And this, I feel like they're the hardest to predict of any team at the moment, and maybe like Wildcard are close, maybe some other teams are close, but yeah, I feel like they're, to my mind, are the hardest to predict. So what do you think is going to happen with Beast Coast?
I think Beast Coast has found their footing, and I think they're gonna move up. I think they're good. They're good for the rest of the stage.
Okay.
I think that it's not just a fluke that they beat DZ and SQ so bad. I think that they've really found their footing, and I could see them being in the major potentially.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I, at the very least, feel like they're not going to go back to looking nearly as bad as they did at the beginning. I don't know if they'll keep up these super impressive performances. I think people are really going to take notice of probably them and Wildcard, maybe pay them a little bit more respect. But it does feel like maybe the other teams they were playing against were sort of slipping up, but it also feels like they really shored up their play and look like a respectable team. It probably did help them that they were so bad early on. People probably were underestimating them at least a little bit, but I do think the merits are more their own rather than the folly of their opponents.
Whenever they play a team that they have a X player on, it's a guaranteed win for them.
Yeah, because
whenever they played DZ, they got Gavini. Whenever they played Sonics, they have Gunner.
Okay, and they have Hot and Cold for SSG.
Yep, exactly.
They don't have an Oxygen player, right? Gunner, Gavini, no. Spirits, Hot and Cold, no. And then, of course, they don't have a Los player. But so they got one more freebie coming up. Yeah, the swing game here is obviously Beast Coast versus SSG because these two teams are right next to each other. They both have Oxygen to play against. If you assume Oxygen will keep being really good, then big for them. And even if you assume Beast Coast will beat Los because SSG is higher up, it really does come down to. So if you assume that these are both losses, this is the win, then it still comes down to this game. Unless it's overtime, then there could be some funkiness. But
so there's gonna be a lot of overtime.
Clearly.
Stage, so
I saw it written in the bones.
Yeah.
So SSG, you must have them coming down then.
Yeah, I had SSG and Beast Coast just trading spots. And then I had Sonics jumping up all the way to 3.
3? That's insane. Only 2 games left and they...
Well, I had them getting 5 points with those 2 games, and I had Wildcard finishing with 12 points as well, and then I looked at the plus minus, and I think that Sonics will have the plus minus there.
Fair enough. I also set SSG down, and again, I think whoever wins in this game, unless maybe it's overtime, then probably, whoever wins here will be higher than the other one. So I think maybe Beast Coast passes SSG, and I guess I also sort of think, SQ might pass up SSG. I think they're probably staying in top 6, but SQ might pop up because I think they're probably beating Luminosity and, maybe getting a point or something. I think it's possible SSG get no points in these 2 games. I think it's also possible they get the full 6 points. I think.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm certainly not considering OXG like an auto loss for every team that play against them. And actually, I have a mistake here because they can't both play Oxygen.
Well, Oxygen might play twice on that day.
Oh, you're right. They might. Because I had one error for Europe that I fixed before the video. But
wait, they don't actually. They don't. They only play one.
What SSG and okay, hang on. SSG and Beast Coast. Who do they? SSG plays Beast. Oh, that's the first day. The second day. SSG plays Oxygen. Beast Coast plays M80. Okay, so.
Oh, so you did.
Oxygen. Yeah, I. So. Yeah, because there's no team plays twice in the last 3 days. They're all just 4 matches. So this, I think, is right. Hopefully, I don't have any other duplicates. So does that change anything up for you as far as you made your predictions without looking at this? So.
Yeah, I was looking at the matches that are on there. So yeah. I think M80 Oxygen, they're both good.
We'll talk about this in a moment when we get there. I don't know. In my head, like my primal feeling is that M80 feels scarier than Oxygen right now. Do you?
I agree. I think M80, and I said this last week when I was talking to you about predictions. I said I think M80 is the best team in NA right now.
And we'll see. And M80 was really good even last year within NA. They got like first place into second place as far as major seeding, and then they fell off at the majors, obviously. But we'll wait just a minute before we get to these 2 teams. Yeah, I don't know. Just maybe this I'm wrong in thinking this. Obviously, Oxygen have a whole 4 points over M80, but M80 have just looked scary. They probably should have 14 points. Like they probably should have just beat Luminosity. They just let that slip.
Yeah.
Had it not been for that hat incredible play, then things might have been different. But anyways, I guess this doesn't really change anything for me. I think. I don't want to see SSG go down, certainly. I'm always rooting for these guys. They've been my favorite team for a long time, even if they're a very different team nowadays. But this is still good enough for top 6.
And the way I look at it also, position in top 6 doesn't really matter besides top 2. Like if you're in that 3 to 6 range, it's just who you're playing. And, as long as you play good in that one best of 3, then you're set up to have 2 opportunities to only win 1 best of 3 to get to the major.
Okay, so wildcard, you must have them going down then if you think Sonics.
I do. I have them going down 1 spot.
1 spot. So yeah, they showed up big in the last week, just like we saw Beast Coast, just like we saw ITB, just like we saw ENCE. We saw a lot of the seemingly some of the worst teams in each league really pop off. And wildcard 7-1 over SSG. What was their other win? 7-4 over Los, and these were actually in the same day. They had the bye day on the previous day. So a good win against Los and a really good win against SSG. One of the only 7-1s. So we saw
a revenge game.
A couple of 7-1s actually.
Going against his old team.
This was one of the matchups that was supposed to happen in the very first day before that got postponed. Do you think this would have looked significantly different had it happened on the first day?
I think SSG won if they play the first
game. I predicted SSG to win then. I also predicted them to win it here. This was one of the matchups that I really did think SSG was going to win this. I predicted against Wildcard in both games. Obviously, I regret it now. I almost went with them over Los, though. I also almost went with Beast Coast over Dark Zero. Clearly, I should have done it. But I didn't really too much consider Wildcard over SSG. I didn't think SSG was going to do this badly on the day. And I guess that was my bad. So
you predicted SSG to win twice too, didn't you?
I did, yeah. And God, this game was so close. Like SSG were sort of on the back foot a lot of the game, and they just slipped on the last round. It should have gone overtime. But that
Amaru play?
Oh that was crazy. Yeah, that was crazy. There was like 1 second left on the defuse. So had that, had that gone SSG's way, and the last round SSG would have won 7-5. Did you notice? I think I talked about it in my previous video, but maybe you didn't watch it because it's like half an hour long. Did you see in the very last round, cameraman Castle Spoit into that back hallway in the basement did you see that?
No, I don't.
I'm pretty sure. So do you remember that Spoit got the flank on them at the very end, right? That was sort of the game play.
Yeah.
You don't see it on camera, but I'm pretty positive that what happens is, so before SSG take over server, cameraman uses one of the castles in his pocket. He puts Spoit into that back hallway, and Spoit's playing on, like, I think he was Solus. And he could have just hid back there, but because it was castled, you're never going to check back there. You're never like, oh, what if somebody got castled in here halfway through the round? Let us drone this. So they never check, so they get flanked by Spoit. But again, you don't see it on cam. I'm pretty sure I heard it. I heard it though. Him putting up the castle. I saw him start the animation. So if anybody is listening and can correct me that it definitely didn't happen, let me know. But I'm pretty sure that's what happened, which is like an insane play. For that play to happen and the Amaru play in the same game, that's just crazy.
Yeah.
So M80, good on them. They got the win, but this could have gone either way. Like, so many of those rounds were so close. That was a really good game. So I predicted it wrong, but I mean, I don't feel too bad. That could have, on a different day, that might have gone SSG's way. So back to Wildcard. I have them staying here. So my predictions are pretty boring for NA. I have a lot of stays. I think they beat LG and maybe beat Sonics and Dark Zero. I could definitely see them losing to Sonics and or Dark Zero. We'll have to see. I guess it doesn't really line up with my prediction too much if they lose both. But, and I don't know, this is another one that's hard to call. Like, maybe the last week was a little bit of a fluke week. Maybe Beast Coast loses all their games and Wildcard loses all their games. Like, it's tough to call, but two solid wins. I mean, I'll give it up. And not only that, but also these are like 3 of the weaker teams they play against. So, they already played Auction and M80. And that's part of the reason they look so bad. Those were their very first 2 games, right? Wildcard played M80 and then they played Oxygen. So in hindsight, that's not nearly as bad. If you think Oxygen and M80 are like by far the best 2 teams, then them, I think recontextualizing, they look a lot better in that way. So I'll give it up. I think they hold that 3rd place. I'd be really happy to see, Rampy and Bosco, 2 of the OG SSG players. So
and Rampy had a good game, had a good day.
Finally,
he was pretty bad, and then he stepped up against.
And Bosco's been really solid. Kansan's been phenomenal. So hopefully Wildcard tightens up a little bit more as a team, because again, it does seem like Kansan and Bosco's heroics have got them a decent amount of the way. But I mean, I'll give a little bit of credit at least to Rampy, Spiker, and Vertical. They've all had their moments at the very least.
Yeah.
The last 2. So we have M80 and we have Oxygen. Do you think M80 overtakes Oxygen?
No. I have them both saying the same. I think M80 wins the match against Oxygen on the last day, but I have OXG getting to 20 points. I just think that 4-point advantage is huge, especially with them still playing 3 matches.
If it was just 3 points, then it could maybe be determined by the head-to-head, but a whole 4 points makes it so the head-to-head, as long as Oxygen, if they just win these 2, it won't matter at all. If they win in both in regulation, this last game won't matter at all for first place. Oxygen will already be locked in. So, what do you think happens in these games? So do M80 beat Los?
I had M80 in a regulation win against Los, and then I want to say 2 overtime wins against Beast Coast and Oxygen. Okay, listen. If I say overtime win, it doesn't actually mean I'm predicting overtime. It just means I couldn't decide who wins, so I gave one team 2 points and one team won 1 point.
And then what do you think Oxygen's doing? Because their matchups.
I had them getting
harder.
5 points between those. So I think I had them maybe 2 overtime wins and overtime loss. Their matches definitely look harder on in terms of how good it would be, but
Beast Coast and SSG are almost neck and neck, and then Dark Zero and Los are pretty low. So I guess technically SSG is above Beast Coast and Dark Zero is above Los. But even if you ignore the standings, just traditional wisdom, these look way two scarier teams than these 2 teams, right? So and then the head-to-head, we'll see. It might not matter, but if this had been closer, if M80 was on 12, maybe 13 points, I might predict M80. But I think with the lead Auction has, it feels hard to predict against them. And they get to play Dark Zero here, so that might be better than playing against Dark Zero. I don't know. Maybe it won't matter if Dark Zero, because on the last day, it might be that Dark Zero literally can't get into the top 6, so maybe they won't. They might not have a fire under their ass, whatever. Who knows? Yeah. It's hard to say at the moment. Maybe we'll look back and say it was better to play Dark Zero on this day or M80 on this day or whatever. But yeah, so mine are pretty boring for NA particularly. I had 3 stays on the top, 3 stays on the bottom. Yours, I guess, a lot more fluctuation in the middle.
Yeah, it's mostly just moving up 1 spot, moving down 1 spot.
Yeah,
for the most part. Sonic's the only team I really having moving up a good bit.
This is still the thing I really want to examine against at the very end. And I don't remember if I mentioned this. I assume that people figured it out by now. But did I say that a lower score is better? A lower score is better in this case. It means you're closer.
You said your scores were better. So
yeah, so that implies so
yeah.
Lower score is better in this case. Yeah.
I definitely think so far this has been the most unpredictable stage in recent memory, and that's not just in terms of NA, that's in terms of NA, EU, and Brazil, all 3 of them. Yeah. It's all the top teams have all been struggling except for FaZe, and BDS wasn't even at SI, so can you really say they were a top team going into it? I mean, so it's kind of crazy what has happened.
Yeah, and a lot of that honestly was in the last week. Obviously, Liquid doing so badly, that was unexpected. Maybe you thought they wouldn't do super well, but the Furia, they had a really bad week. SSG had a bad week. Beast Coast and Wildcard had a great week. ITB and ENCE had a great week. Yeah, there were a lot of teams climbed up the rankings, and a lot of those top teams, the teams that were at SI have not been performing because Oxygen wasn't at SI. M80, basically a brand new team, but even if you consider them the same, they were at SI, but they were horrible. BDS, Secret, ENCE, ITB, none of them were at SI. Wildcard wasn't. Yeah, so just tons of non-SI teams. And again, maybe it is a really big advantage having not been at SI to not only have more time to practice up, but also have a lot more VOD on the teams that were there. And we'll see. Maybe the SI going teams will have an advantage going into playoffs because they have a lot more non-best of 1 experience. SI being strictly best of 3s and the one non-best of 3 grand final. So we'll have to see if that shines through.
It definitely looks to favor the teams that have more experience in a best of 3 and a bigger map pool too. Because best of 1 map pool does not matter near as much as it matters in a best of 3. So the teams that have had more prep time and have had their teams stayed together for longer are probably going to advantage more in a best of 3 than a best of 1.
Yeah, you can basically have 2, 3, maybe even 4 permit bans and do reasonably in best of 1 as long as your other maps are polished. But if you have 4 permit bans, it's not going to work out for you in best of 3s. You're going to have to play one of those maps. And if you have, So yeah, a bigger map pool. That's also another good point. So let's look at the other guys' comments really quickly, and then maybe we'll just see if we have any closing remarks. So,
I do have a live update. Liquid wins in overtime against MIBR.
I mean, not the best win. MIBR were kind of whatever, but another win for Liquid. I mean, they're on a streak certainly. Does that I want to see really quickly.
Puts them right outside the top 6. They're 2 points away.
Okay.
But
then other teams are gonna, there's still more games to play today. Anyways, Tom said regarding NA, he was wrong about Oxygen. He thought that they were gonna be mid or not so good or whatever, but they're actually just well balanced. And yeah, I think a lot of people were pretty low on Oxygen. Like they had them 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th place. I had them in 3rd. Obviously, still underrating what they are currently. I don't think many people, if anyone, put them in like 1st place, but a lot of people certainly underrating Oxygen. He said that he was overly optimistic about Sonic's performances, but it was he was right to question Grixer getting benched. So he thinks that maybe if they kept Grixer on, they would be having a better performance at the moment. I think the Sonics thing right now, like they are kind of struggling, but like they made several rosters, 2 coming into the stage, and Ambi only played SI, so it's a very new look roster.
Yeah,
I think you got to give them a little bit more time. If they get smoked on their way to the major, whether that be in playoffs and or in the LCQ, whatever it is, then maybe you question a little bit. But I think it's a little bit early to question. If they make the major, then I mean, what are you going to say about it? Like,
yeah,
they made the major. So we'll have to see. I think you got to give it a little bit more time. If they're really close, like they just barely miss out on the major, I think they even deserve they deserve to play next stage before we make final judgments, because their goal isn't just to have a consistent team. I think this is sort of known information that Gio said that he doesn't think that they could win with that previous roster. They had some decent performances, like Sonics over the years have had, some major top 4s and whatnot, but you're not aiming for top 4s, you're aiming to win. You want to get a win. Mm-hmm. What else did he say? He said that regarding Bolo, he hasn't seen him show up much this season, and I think we debunked that a little bit. He really fell off recently, but he was having at least a reasonable stage. Yeah. You can't blame him too much. It's the whole team hasn't been good, right? It's not all on him.
I mean, yeah, he's still like, if you look at his rating, I mean,
yeah, what's he like, 4th?
He's a 9.3 and Pamba's a 9.5. So like, they're like neck and neck with Bolo and Pamba.
So he is in 4th place, but just basically below Pamba, still way above Canadian. He's only -4, -5. So even with his 0-8 game, before his 0-8 game, he was positive on kills. So I think it's too early to call. Maybe Dark Zero makes the run through the LCQ. It looks like.
I think Bolo's also known as like a feast or famine player. Like he can go off. I feel like
he can certainly go off. We saw him go off at SI at least one map where he dropped 20 plus kills. He's certainly not the monster he was before, but who knows? Maybe he can get back there. It seems unlikely, but I mean, yeah, you definitely need to see more from him, but you need to see more from Dark Zero in general. You can also point a finger at, certainly at Canadian, but NJR, he shored up his performance, but I mean, he like really padded his stats in the last 3 games. The games before that, he was awful. So,
Sure.
Dark Zero just has a lot of work to do, apparently, as a team. I don't think I'm ready to point any fingers at Bolo in particular. And then finally, Tom says M80 beat expectations, and it looks like they're going to finish top 2. And yeah, I think M80 beat all of our expectations because we all had them in 4th, 5th, or 6th. We all had them around the middle, and I think that's like fair enough. Like, brand new team, a lot of talent, but we don't know if they're going to play well together as a team. I guess people that had them like really high will feel good right now, but I don't feel too bad having them in the middle. It was too hard to predict them, I think, at the beginning.
Yeah.
And
I think if you had told me the other teams were gonna fall off, like DZ and SSG and Sonics were all not gonna look as good, I would have been like, oh, hey, M80, they're the next team.
Big gap a very sizable gap to fill. That's also a good point.
Yeah.
And then Tact, he said he's very surprised about the upsets LG has pulled off. So they beat Beast Coast. It didn't feel like too much of an upset at the time, because that was like was that Beast Coast's first game or something? I think it was their first game. So it looks better now that Beast Coast has impressive feats under their belts, but I think that's kind of whatever. The M80 one is the really impressive one. And had that not happened, M80 would look almost inscrutable. I guess that is their only loss, right? They went to overtime, and that's their only other point missing. Yeah, they're 4-1. So Luminosity, the only team to have defeated M80. So a good one there. A bit of a puzzler. We've seen a few curious results on Skyscraper, and I guess that being one, and then today the Wild versus ITB one with a very attacker-sided. So we'll see. Maybe I think LG maybe has one more surprise win in them, but I don't have a ton
Wild
of
played Fnatic today, right?
Oh, who did I say? Did I say ITB? I meant
ITB,
Fnatic. Yeah, that's my bad. I did mean Fnatic. He also said Oxygen doing as good as they have. He didn't expect. He expects M80 to get first with the schedule they have left. So probably he thinks M80 will beat Oxygen, and then maybe. Even
I could see it.
I could see it for sure. Like I said, if M80 just had like 1 or 2 more points, I might predict them, but the 4-point gap is certainly sizable.
So M80 wins all their games in regulation. They have
20 points.
Oxygen can still lose the head-to-head to M80 and still get 20.
Yeah, if they get the full 6 against Dark Zero SSG, it won't matter at all what happened in the last game for Oxygen. Yeah. And he also said he's kind of concerned by SSG dropping the games that they did, and that they can maybe turn it around. I think it's entirely possible. Like I said, I wouldn't be shocked to see SSG beat both Beast Coast and Oxygen. Maybe they'll come back a lot better. And the Beast Coast SSG game, that feels like fairly 50-50. The Oxygen one feels a little bit more of an uphill battle, but I could still see it. SSG, everyone knows they're a good team. They had a bad week. I'm not ready to write them off. I think they could be the first and only team to beat Oxygen potentially. I think that's entirely possible.
And with how good Ashen has been playing too.
Yeah. Ashen and JNNO have been really good. Fultz has been reasonable. If Forest and Iconic pick it up and the other players keep playing as they've been playing, I think SSG can beat almost any team.
That's true. I agree.
DZ disappointed a lot, and yeah, Bolo dropped a donut. Everyone's gonna remember because I feel like that might be the first time we've ever seen a 0.00 rating in any of the big regions.
You said something about that in your video.
I know I've seen it in like once or twice in APAC regions. Maybe when they were actually like called APAC. I've definitely seen it before in like technically T1 competition, but again, I don't know if I've ever seen that in North America, Europe, or Brazil.
I can't. I never really looked at the like individual stats of games that much. I mainly just look at the overall stage stats. So.
Yeah. If anybody watching the video knows of any 0.00 ratings in one of the big regions, certainly point me there. I'd be curious to see who it was in what game. And Tact says that he thinks it's time for Bolo to go back to content creation. I think that's kind of harsh. I mean, I haven't been. Tact said that.
Yeah, I haven't been wowed by
Bolo, but that just seems kind of harsh. I think he deserves at least a little bit more time to prove he's still got the stuff. And if he does get, I don't know, it's just gonna put Dark Zero back in the cycle. They picked up. They had the whole thing where Skies had to like sub in, and then they had Achieve, and then they had Rice, and now they picked up. Are they just gonna go back to the revolving door, or are they gonna give the roster more time?
I mean, if they had Gavini instead of Bolo, I mean, do you think they would be better?
Yeah, I don't know. That's tough to say. Maybe. I mean, I feel like you don't just drop Bolo. Like, even if you think he's a bad player, he's just a valuable player to have signed to your organization.
Yeah.
So
everybody watches those matches.
Yeah, unless Bolo is actually going 0-8 every game, I don't know. I just feel like he isn't going to get dropped for a while. Maybe he'll decide to retire, but I don't think Dark Zero's be like, Bolo, it's time for you to go. And then finally he says, look out for Wildcard making a sneaky run for 4th. They're already in 3rd place, but he thinks that they'll maintain at least top 4. And I assume he means top 4 for the major, not just top 4 for the round robin once again. And I think that's reasonable. I
wonder if Kansan's gonna be able to keep it up, because I mean,
yeah, he's been going crazy.
1.38 rating with plus 24 kills is,
and I think he actually has the 2nd highest rating in the world over the course of the last year, behind only Shaiko. And well, to be fair though, Kansan hasn't. None of that is playing at a major or SI, so it's much less competition. Yeah. But still, very high rating for the last year of play. And I guess one final thing: what team from each region, from each of these 2 regions, would you most be excited to see play at the major?
Ooh, this is a fun one. Most fun. I want to see Beast Coast at the major. I like all those players.
Yeah.
So for NA, I think I'll go with Beast Coast. For EU, let's see here. I really like the way that Secret attacks, so I'll say Secret.
Yeah,
they have very execute based attacks, like a lot of plants and stuff.
Yeah,
from what I've seen, and it's really entertaining.
Yeah.
It's really fun to watch. So
yeah, and I think those are probably my two picks as well. I think if I went with the backup, I think for North America, I'd say Beast Coast and or Wildcard, and for Europe, I'd probably say Secret and or ITB, maybe Fnatic, but I think that one's a little bit more of a long shot. I think ITB would be cool to see, and I'll eat my words a little bit. Again, I had them in like last place, but they proved me wrong, so I'll give it up. I'd like to see them. It's cool to see.
I want to see Sonics
not only a new team,
too.
but yeah, of course. I want
to see Merc. I want to see Merc on
like,
LAN. I want to see Merc on LAN again.
Yeah, it's been a while. What was his last? Was it
probably TSM? Like
was it or was it SI 2022? It might have been. Anyways, obviously I like to see Sonics and SSG. Those are two teams that I root for, but I just think the Beast Coast and Wildcard, because they haven't been there, as the orgs have never been to a major, and a lot of the players haven't been to. Well, I guess a lot of the Beast Coast players have been to majors.
I think I could get behind a wild lower LCQ run for the major too.
Actually, I guess that's not really true, because I think like 8 out of the 10 of those players have been to majors. But anyways, I'll take that back. The teams. And what did you say? Los? You said something about Los?
No, I said I could get behind a wild LCQ run.
Oh, wild. Okay. Major. Yeah, and that would be wild. I
want to see Kanto. I want to see Kanto at an event too.
Kanto. I don't know. Everyone's saying, has Kanto had a good stage? There's no way he's had a good stage. Has he? Has an okay stage?
He had a good stage with ITB.
He's the worst. Yeah, he did. He was really good last stage, but he's been. I don't know. Everybody's saying time for Bolo to hang it up, but look at Kanto's stats. Is it time for Kanto to hang it up?
I just think like with Siege, it's so hard to just base it off because they've maybe played 5 or 6 games, and that's one. That's not even best of 3s. That's one game. Like if you've ever just got on Siege, you know that you're gonna have bad games, and sometimes you're gonna have 6 bad games in a row, and sometimes you're gonna have 6 good games in a row.
You know something about
Yeah. We're not gonna talk about that. But hey, good plug though. K-Bomb on stream.
It's what Twitch. Is it? K-Bomb. What are the numbers at the
18-8. K-Bomb 18-8-2-1.
Yeah.
Something like that. This
guy started streaming today. And
also High Ground on Twitch as well.
Yeah, High Ground Tanner. I streamed the last 2 weeks one day. I don't know. I don't know. I might stream tomorrow or Thursday. Probably just one of the two. I'll be streaming one of the two, but I'll if you are interested in that, look for the notification on Twitter and or on YouTube. And yeah, hopefully, I think a few more people this week expressed interest in showing up, and we've had a few people that are consistently there. It's nice. It's been me and K-Bomb, and then for the later games, somebody else usually shows up to throw a wrench and things. But it's nice to chat with everybody. Maybe you like to watch Super, maybe you like to watch Fox A, Jesse, whatever. But if you want a little bit more of a low key experience, something else, come check out the stream. I think it's maybe not the highest production quality, but I think it's a lot of fun.
If you want to chat with some extremely knowledgeable people on Siege, our predictions collectively, I don't know about the last day, but they were better than the stage desk up until
theirs fell off a cliff too. Theirs are also
so theirs were probably bad too.
I think our average was higher than theirs, and now I'm not sure what theirs are at. Our average is just above 50%, but
we know what we're talking about more than they did.
We predicted better or equivalent to the desk. Anyways, pull up to that. Definitely this is something we should have plugged at the beginning, but oh well. And yeah, I guess that's gonna do it. I will catch you guys next time.